Ow! Greetings, YouTube. This is DecKrash, better known as Brandon. Okay, I at first didn't want to make a review of this only because, well, it's, as movies go, it's fairly average. So I'm going to go ahead and I finally decided to make a review of the new movie Total Recall. I went to go see it last night, and I was looking at some of the reviews for it, and I really felt that people were not being very fair to this movie at all. Okay, as you already heard when I first said it, as movies go, it's fairly average, but it doesn't mean that it's bad. Okay, for those of you who don't know, Total Recall, of course, is a remake of the 1990 movie starring Arnold Schwarzenegger. Now, in the original movie, it basically tells like Arnold Schwarzenegger's this average Joe who is bored with his normal everyday life, even though he's got a beautiful wife and whatnot. He's bored with his normal life, so he goes to this little place called Recall, which sells fake memories. They implant memories into your head, make you think that you could be anyone or anything. Though it has it's gone through it has a reputation of causing people to go crazy or get lobotomized because you're messing with your brain. Anyway, he decides to go for a little. He keeps on having these recurring dreams about being on Mars, and then he goes to Recall, gets a fake memory of being a secret agent on Mars, and then it blows his cover. He starts to recover. He starts regaining certain types of memories of him actually having been to Mars and being basically a secret agent. He has all these people chasing him down, and pretty much the whole plot, in the end, he goes to Mars and finds out that he was privy to this big conspiracy by the leader of Mars, who was keeping this alien device that they found that gives off that would have, when activated, would have given Mars an Earth-like atmosphere so that people wouldn't have to live in domes to breathe. For the time that it was made, it was very good, a very good movie, and it's of course very well known, very well liked action movie. So fast forward to about 22 years, and now we have the new one with Colin Farrell, and this one forgoes the whole Martian storyline. And originally it was rumored to have been closer to the original story that it was based off of. If you don't know, Total Recall was based off of a short story by Philip K. Dick called "We Can Remember It For You Wholesale." Philip K. Dick is one of the most well-respected science fiction writers out there. Was. I think he died a while back. But anyway, so this one unfortunately is not. But what they do things differently. It is a remake. However, and by the way, this is going to be a spoiler-free review, as spoiler-free as I can make it. Seeing how you can't watch the movie without having to have compared it to the original Total Recall. Now, up until this time, I had never watched the original all the way through. I finally managed to get my hands on it and watch it all the way through before I did this interview. I'd seen pieces of it enough to where I could pretty much have said that I've watched, and I owned a comic book adaptation of the movie when I was a kid. So I knew the whole story anyway. So the story, instead of things happening on Mars, it all happens on Earth, as it was in the first movie. It takes place in the future. What it is some sort of massive chemical warfare makes most of the surface of the Earth uninhabitable, except for Great Britain and Australia. And Great Britain is turned into this empire, and Australia is simply called the colony. And the empire exploits the colony for cheap labor through this elevator that runs through the center of the Earth. That was one of the cooler points of the movie, because it actually does do if you know your science, gravity pulls everything towards the center. Well, when the elevator goes through the center of the Earth, there's no gravity, and then when it gets past a certain point, the gravity shifts. So everything you thought was down is now up, and up is now down. It's actually a really cool little effect that they play in the movie. So Colin Farrell plays the same. They've got the same characters pretty much. A guy named Quaid, who is a low-level factory worker who wants who's bored with his life, and even though he has a beautiful wife and whatnot, and He goes to recall the self-fake memories, tries to get a memory of becoming a secret agent, and it ends up reactivating memories that were erased, or at least suppressed. And pretty much the bedlam ensues. Now, here's the interesting thing, and now a lot of reviewers are going to say the same thing about the movie. With the exception of certain elements in that movie, it is almost bit by bit the exact same thing as the original Arnold Schwarzenegger movie. I mean, the plot, except for a few small elements, works almost exactly the same. Except, I think that, okay, the original, whereas the original gives you some time to breathe, the new one doesn't give as much. It have a one point in the movie where things kind of calm down, and then all of a sudden, it's action, action, action again. And don't get me wrong, the action scenes in the new one are incredible, and, well, in my opinion, worlds better than the action scenes in the original. Well, the action scenes in the original are nothing to sneeze at. The original was done by I think it's Paul Verhoeven. He's the same guy who did Starship Troopers and Showgirls and dang it. Can't really remember right off the top of my head the other movie. Oh, and Hollow Man. Anyway, and if you know Verhoeven's style, Verhoeven is not subtle at all. His movies tend to be very in your face, very gruesome. And this one, however, it's not so much that it tones back the violence. It's just that it's not Verhoeven's style. It's a bit less gruesome. The action scenes are slick. The technology is just... I loved the technology in this movie. My God, the cool glowy tattoos. It was like what was it? LCD like tattoos and well, there is this one scene in the original when Arnold's character Quaid goes into this bar and meets this girl who is a mutant, like a lot of other people are on Mars, because of like bad shielding on the domes, letting in radiation. She has 3 breasts. And it was kind of one of the more kind of moments in movie history. And so they went on ahead and redid that part in the in the remake, excuse me. And so it was sort of like there are a lot of nods to the original in this one. And I think this is one of the reasons why so many people, people who maybe have been unfamiliar with the original loved, they wouldn't have gotten it, excuse me. The fans of the original either loved that or hated that. They had so many nods to the original. Kate Beckinsale is in this movie, and she plays basically the fake wife for Quaid, that if you watch the original, basically turns on him, and she basically juggles actually 2 roles from the original. The original actually had, I think it was Sharon Stone played the fake wife, and then you had one of my favorite actors, Michael Ironside, playing this agent of Cohagen, who in the original movie was basically the governor of Mars. In the new movie, he was basically the president of this empire. So they kind of fused the 2 roles together. She was both Quaid's fake wife and also Cohagen's attack dog, and with basically more lives than a cat, And so they played that really well. Now, Kate Beckinsale, don't get me wrong, did a great job with her character. But because Cohagen was supposed to be the villain, the guy who played Cohagen didn't really get that much screen time. He just played him as just like evil. Where in the original movie, yeah, Cohagen was evil, but he had a bit more substance. The movie actually spent time, explaining what kind of a person he was and the reason why he did what he did. In the second movie, Cohagen was just there. He was just some evil jackass who wanted power. So it kind of is a bit of a letdown, seeing how the character who's basically pursuing Quaid this whole time actually has more substance than the true villain of the movie. Now, here's something else where they're kind of similar. In both movies, you had this leader of the resistance. In the original Arnold Schwarzenegger one, it was this mutant named Kuato. In the new movie, it's this guy named Matthias, who's played by Bill Nighy. Nighy, I think that's how you pronounce his name. He played Davy Jones in the Pirates of the Caribbean, also the leader of the vampires in the first Underworld movie. Which is kind of interesting that Kate Beckinsale's in this, and if I'm remembering right, the guy who directs the new one is the guy who directed the original Underworld, and I think Kate Beckinsale is his wife, and then he got Bill Nighy back in. I like that little combination there, but what I'm trying to say here, please excuse me guys, I digress, but you know me. Kuato didn't get a lot of screen time in the original. Matthias, in my humble opinion, gets even less. You don't care one whit about this guy at all. He pretty much reads almost the same lines that Kuato said in the original. And I can understand why some people really really did not like that. Where this movie really shines, like I said, is in the technology that's presented, because the original one, you could tell, was done in the 80s. It had really cool technology, but it was bulky and a lot of use of puppetry. And, well, it's just because visual effects, of course, back then were not quite as sophisticated as they are now. They couldn't do the things that we now can. So the effects of this movie were just absolutely stellar. That chase scene with the cars was awesome. Now, I was reading one review, and they were talking about how the one person had a problem with the chase scene simply because all the cars kind of look the same. And, well, yeah, that's a nitpick. It was a little difficult to tell the difference between the cars in that particular part. But on the whole, that part was awesome with the floating cars on magnetic rails. It reminded me of the chase scene from Minority Report, which was another movie based off a Philip K. Dick story. And so it really that was just incredible. And then the whole final scene on the what's called the fall, that's that elevator I was telling you about, was just awesome. Now, there was also this one sequence in this building that had these elevators that went up, down, and sideways, and there was these multiple dimensional shafts, and it was just crazy. They just had to continuously move to keep themselves from getting crushed and stuff like that. It was a really awesome scene. This movie had far better action scenes than the original. The original had mostly chase, gun, chase, gun. A couple of car chase scenes, but it was kind of claustrophobic because you're on Mars, and most of the buildings and such like that were underground, so you didn't have a whole lot of room to move around. This one was just incredible, and especially how they had these cities built. They were like multi-tiered with like buildings under buildings, and if you've seen some of the trailers of the movie, you know what I mean. Some of these buildings were sort of built from the top down like stalactites, which I thought was really cool. And there was this one chase scene in the movie that involved that kind of the building structure and showing you a bit more about it. Also, what I liked was the new movie was that there was a real dichotomy between the Empire and the colony. The Empire still had those buildings upon buildings thing, but it was much slicker, beautiful, cleaner looking than when they went to the colony, and everything was so dark and dank and dirty. Showed the difference between the life, the quality of life of the people living in the Empire and the people living in the colonies. In the original Total Recall, the first half of the movie is on Earth, the second half is on Mars. There's really no distinction. Well, I mean, they show there is a distinction in that on Earth, it just looks like Earth with a slight futuristic twist. But on Mars, everything's underground, and the Mars did have a very cool look to it. Don't get me wrong; it even had all the light and everything was filtered through red, to simulate the conditions on Mars being the red planet. But I really liked the way they presented the difference in looks in the two places in the new Total Recall movie. Where the movie really shines is its setting and the technology and effects, and the action scenes are absolutely top notch. Acting wise, like I said, it left something to be desired. I will agree with people who've watched this movie and reviewed it that the first movie had much better characterization. You didn't really feel as much for the characters in the new one. And it's kind of sad because I wanted to like this movie more than I did, although I did like it. But it's one of those ones that's basically a popcorn movie. Colin Farrell is passably good as Quaid, but he doesn't play it as well as Arnold Schwarzenegger did. Kate Beckinsale's the fake wife, and can't remember her name to save my life. Just one moment. All right, Lori. That was the fake wife's name. Yeah, Kate Beckinsale's Lori did a great job of what she was given, but she was pretty much, just like I said, just an attack dog, and just had this just desire to continue going after this guy, going after Quaid, trying to kill him. Jessica Biel played Melina, Melina was also in the original movie. And here's something I just forgot to say. I could not tell Kate Beckinsale and Jessica Biel apart. It was kind of difficult. But Jessica Biel, she felt like a stick in the mud. Bill Nighy, despite the very brief amount of screen time it was given to him, you could tell he was trying his absolute best to look like this leader who was trying to be a shepherd to his people, for his role to mean something. Didn't quite hit it. To me, I think that the stronger characterization was most certainly in the first movie, and that's what makes it so much more memorable. Because even as crazy and the premises of the movie being so out there and silly, the first movie was having fun with what they were doing and was able to tell a good story, and they had a much stronger script. This new movie, the remake, is a much more serious take on the movie, which kind of bugs me just a little bit, because it didn't look like it was having as much fun. But on the whole, like I said, still an enjoyable movie. If you've never seen the original and go watch the new one, I think you might enjoy it a little bit better than if you've watched the original and go see it. I still think that fans of the original and people who've reviewed it are being a bit too hard on this movie. The only thing that I would say that that the movie needed to beef up some was the characterization. Otherwise, everything else really worked. Had a great storyline, great action sequences, awesome visual effects. Characterization, though, left a little something to be desired. Fortunately, I'm the kind of guy who can go watch a movie that may not have terribly strong characterization and still enjoy it. One of the ones that stands out the most in my memory is Stargate. Had a great premise, storyline, visual effects, action sequences, awesome. Characterization, kind of. Thank God they made the TV series. But anyway, I'm just saying that's the only issue I have with it. It's still a fun movie, and, well, on a scale of 1 to 10, this one gets a solid 7. It was very enjoyable, but could have been better, and really should have been better. But I still liked it. Whether or not you want to go see it, if you go there not expecting expecting some of the same things as the first one, but done in a different way, and tone down your expectations of characterization, I think you will enjoy it, because there's a lot of action in the movie and has a great premise and storyline. I found myself immensely enjoying it. But it could have been better, as I said. So that's my take on it, guys. I just wanted to say, I just felt that people who reviewed it were being a little unfair, just giving it such a low score like that. So that's it for me now. I will be back soon enough. I'm going to finish up my reviews of the Tron series very soon. Sorry I've been dragging my feet on that again. And I'll have more stuff for y'all at a later time. So, comment, rate, subscribe. down below, people. Just keep it civil as always. And as always, this is DecKrash, better known as Brandon. Stay lucky and stay blessed.